Welcome back to another Monday here on 91.7 The Edge, WSUW Whitewater Warhawk Hawk Talk. How's everyone doing today?
Good.
Good.
Phenomenal.
It's a pretty gross day outside.
Yeah, it says it's 55 and it feels like it's 40.
I did not look forward to the walk here, to be honest.
Yeah, so to set the tone for this show, got halfway here, had my music in, was getting locked in, walked down that hill right next to Higher Hall, and fell straight on my butt. So that was awesome. Great way to start the day, but you know what? Here and then, the past is the past.
If nobody saw it, it didn't happen.
Exactly. But so, like I said, here and then, past is the past, and let's talk some sports, gentlemen. Hopefully get this show started off better than the walk here. Great little start to the show today for this Warhawk Thought. I devised the question of the best trivia fact that you guys could find. There's a lot of obscure trivia, a lot of great trivia within the world of sports, and I wanted you guys to find something, perhaps something that the average sports knower or ball knower wouldn't know. So Zach, we'll start with you. Your favorite bit of sports trivia.
So here's a little question I have for you guys. Which team do you guys think has the worst playoff record
In NFL?
in the NFL
All time?
History.
of all time?
Tampa Bay?
Nope.
I would guess Cleveland.
Yes, the Browns.
I was thinking Tampa because I know
What's that record?
Their playoff record overall is 12-22.
Ugh,
Wow.
12 and 22.
Bengals have no. I'm trying to think. As the Bengals have the 31st like best. I think says 10-16. Well, that's what the stats say, but wow, but just 12 and 22 for the
12 and
Browns.
22 is pretty bad. My mom's a Cleveland Browns fan, so
When do we think they'll get to 13?
definitely not this year.
Yeah, definitely not this year.
Yeah.
Had they kept Baker, we may be talking about something
I
completely
honestly
different.
thought 13 would have come last year.
They-
Joe Flacco was
they-
looking not.
I still think Browns should have kept Mayfield.
Unfortunate. Great little bit of trivia, rubbing some salt in Brown fan wounds. Adam, best trivia fact.
Okay, I actually found a bunch of them, and there was two that I found that I was like, I can't really decide between the two of them, so I put both of them in here.
Why not?
So the first one I found is that Will Chamberlain, he never fouled out of a game in his entire career. Wow.
I have seen that before. That is incredibly shocking for just as much as he played.
Yeah. And the
Wow.
other one is that golf is the only sport that's ever been played on the moon.
Oh, wow.
Wait, golf?
Yeah.
Oh,
That wasn't a part of the first space mission, was it, or was it?
No, this was like 1971, I think.
Very interesting.
wow.
I wish I could use a tee shot on the moon for my driving distance. That would be a little inflated, I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
Great facts. Great facts. Chris, fun
I've
trivia
got
fact.
another one about the moon.
Hell yeah.
So, back in 1963, MLB Hall of Fame pitcher Gaylord Perry stated, "They'll put a man on the moon before I hit a home run." Mind you, this is 1963. 6 years later, they put Neil Armstrong on the moon, and just hours later, Perry hits his one and only career MLB home run.
I have read that before. That is
That's
awesome.
Wow.
So it just 6 years prior to say they'll put a man on the moon, and then the day of, he hits his first in career only. That's a great bit of sports information. What made you pick that one?
I thought it was just very crazy that he said that he's not going to hit a homer until someone lands on the moon 6 years before it happened, and then he hits a homer the day of. It's just wild to me. Something
It's crazy. I know this isn't sports related, but Mark Twain was born the year of Halley's Comet, and he said the year that I'll pass will be when Halley's Comet comes again. And sure enough, the year that he passed away was the second time in whatever 70, 80 years that Halley's Comet came around. So stuff with outside of Earth, like space and stuff, is very cool. So
yeah.
just very, very unique there with Gaylord Perry. Carson, fun little sports fact.
So you might know this. I didn't know it personally, but does anybody know who has the most RBIs in history and how many it was?
Wait, player or team?
Player.
I think Hank Aaron has the most, but I don't know how.
See, that's what I thought, and it's not.
Oh, it's actually not?
I want to.
I don't know.
I want
Really?
Yeah.
My guess would just be to say Pete Rose just because
Okay,
of the hits.
so I was thinking it was like a household name, like Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, or Pete Rose or something.
I honestly thought it was.
The dude's name is Hack Wilson.
Hack Wilson.
Well, I remember he had the most RBIs in one season with like 190 something.
Yeah, it was 191, which nobody's ever going to come close to that one.
No.
And they even played 8 less games back then, too. So,
Oh, you said in a career. Oh, you said in a season, not a career.
yeah, season.
Okay.
yeah.
If,
I did
okay.
do
Well,
that.
if I heard that, then I would have said Hack Wilson.
I did do that in Road to the Show, by the way.
Yeah,
Oh, you actually did.
just a quick flex.
Same.
Yep.
Same.
Hack
And
Wilson.
Best of all, he
191.
did it on the Cubs, too. So,
Ew. Well, yeah.
What year was that?
It was like
1930.
1930.
In the midst of the curse.
Oh.
Yeah.
in the midst
yeah.
of the. Yeah.
Do you offhand know his batting average from that season?
I looked earlier when I was looking it up. It was only like 307, which is good, but it was like 307. He had
You'd
like
think it'd be a lot
He
higher.
had like 56 homers, 191 RBIs. So
He was just
pretty
dialed
solid,
in.
Holy
Yeah,
cow.
pretty solid campaign.
They must have been pretty good at getting runners on base
He
for him.
was
Yeah.
that dog.
That guy indeed. Lastly, Mason, fun fact.
All right, so there's two main ones that I found. One of them is more of like a hypothetical type thing. One of them is an actual one. The more hypothetical one, I could bring up during the football section, so I might save that one. But because we had a couple, I think, football ones, if I remember correctly, or at least one. So I'll go the basketball route. And over the last 2 games, it's a very narrow, specific stat, but no one's really talking about him that much, and I think he's been going on for a while. De'Aaron Fox, over the last 2 games, has scored 109 points. The only player all time to ever score more in the 2-game span was Kobe Bryant, who scored 110 points. So De'Aaron Fox was 1 point away from scoring all time the most in a 2-game stretch. Very, very nitpicked stats, but I mean those are kind of how most of these stats work. But I just feel like De'Aaron Fox does not get enough love for as good of a player as he is, at the very least, at scoring the ball. And it's sad to think that he's going to be one of those players like all time when you look back that people aren't really going to care about because he's never really going to get a chip, in my opinion. But I find that really interesting that Kobe's the only person to score more, and it's only by 1 point.
And it was probably his 81-point game, too. In the
Yeah,
mix.
that's probably
Yeah.
inflated with the 81-point game
Yeah.
as well. And I'm sure that is definitely the modern era because I know Wilt averaged 54 for a game one season. So that's probably
Yeah,
some.
I mean,
in the
Yeah,
modern era.
I saw Wilt on one, but for most of them, people weren't counting the Wilt one, so I was like,
Wilt's just
don't know.
we just ignore any statistical
Yeah.
anomaly with Wilt Chamberlain at
It's
this
not
point.
fair.
But yes, so 109 points, that's 54.5 per game in 2 games. In today's NBA is insane. And what was your other one, Mason?
The other one is, so this is one where like you guys can guess if you want to. So this is about if you if you flip the result of every 1 possession game, who do you think has the best record in the league, and who do you think has one of the worst records in the league?
I
Would
think
this
the
be
Which sport?
NFL?
Yeah, NFL.
I think the worst will be the Chiefs.
1 possession games.
Yeah, the
I think
Chiefs gotta
I think
be
I
up.
do know, but I'm gonna
The
wait
Chiefs
for everyone
have had
else to guess.
so many like 1 possession games.
I
that
think
they
I do
should
know,
have
but I'm gonna.
lost.
So is this all time or?
Oh, this
within-
is this season. This
This
season.
Worst has to be Chiefs, and best has to be Ravens. I don't know.
I know the Chargers are very
I
bad
feel
at
like-
1-score games.
Bengals maybe?
Yeah, I was just going to say the best.
Yeah,
I'm gonna guess the Chargers.
He got both of them. The Chargers are up there. They have, it looks like, the 5th best record. But
Okay.
the Bengals would have the number 1 record in the league with 8-2. And I heard a couple Chiefs. They don't have the absolute worst, but they have the 2nd worst with 2-7. And I found that really interesting because I was going to use that against Patrick Mahomes. But we've been talking about it earlier on before the show even cut on. I feel so horrible for Joe Burrow because he is playing out of his mind and is going horrible for him.
That's just
Yeah, one thing I
highly
actually saw
unfortunate.
today was 14 quarterbacks in the history of NFL have thrown 25 touchdowns in less than 5 picks through the first 11 games of the season. Joe Burrow is one of them, and he's the only one with a losing record through those first 11 games.
absolutely
That's wild.
brutal.
That's
I'm
wild.
going to keep my fun fact in basketball as well. So the worst offensive rating in NBA history for a single team in a season is 92.2. The Nuggets, currently in games without Nikola Jokic this year, have an offensive rating of 86.3, which is 6 total net points lower than Nikola Jokic. To counter that, the best offensive rating by an NBA team in NBA history is 123.2. The Nuggets with Nikola Jokic this season have an offensive rating of 125.8. So,
Wow.
if there's ever an argument for the most valuable player in the NBA, based on that and just on top of a bunch of other metrics, Nikola Jokic is hands down the best basketball player in the world.
Yeah.
I 100%.
And he doesn't even care about it.
And he doesn't even try. It's when I don't think you can possibly come up with a better argument for MVP than literally saying without Jokic, they are statistically the worst offensive team in NBA history, whereas with him, they are the best offensive team in NBA history. It's just mind-boggling. And I was able to watch this Grizzlies Nuggets game last night, and Jokic was out due to personal reasons, but I can tell you just comfortably, just someone that watches a lot of basketball and just knowing how good the Grizzlies are, especially at the current state of the season, the overall dynamic of the game is just completely different without Jokic. They go from a great team, Murray and Porter are wide open constantly because of how much Jokic demands, to where trying to get those guys one-on-one, the Grizzlies were able just to bottle them up, and they looked like a bottom 5 team in the league, whereas you put Jokic in the lineup, they're arguably a top 4 team in the Western Conference. So Nikola Jokic, just a little glaze there for my Serbian king.
It was like that thing where like Ja Morant, like in games where he played, the Grizzlies record was like better without him or something.
That was
I thought it was kind of wild. But
that was a freshman year when they were the 2 seed.
But yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. With like even with the De'Aaron Fox thing, it's so horrible because especially with the way the NBA's been doing MVP now, it seems like they're genuinely going more often off of like who really is the most valuable player. It's going to be so hard for anybody to beat guys like a Luka or a Jokic when Jokic can he yawns on the court and will drop the most efficient 30-point triple-double in the
38,
world.
16, and 15.
And
casually.
it's like, what do you do on like 60% shooting and all type of it? How does anyone else ever really combat that with MVP unless he just ends up being like the 10 seed or something like that? It's crazy.
or he misses a certain amount of games because that's the thing now, right?
Oh yeah, that too. But he doesn't get injured like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nikola
this is his
Jokic being
first
super
time
injured.
really being out some games for Denver. It's only been 3 or 4 thus far, but just in these short amount of time that he's been without, the Nuggets have been without Jokic, they've looked abysmal, needless to say. But a lot of great facts today. I really liked the one about golfing on the moon. That was very nice. But we will transition over now to the Warhawk football game this past weekend. A sort of a somber end. Bittersweet, I think, is the best word for it, as the Whitewater won 48-7 to finish the season 6-4. Unfortunately, will not be making the playoffs, finishing with a 4-3 record in the WIAC. We went over this last week of what we want to call it. But, excuse me, good news. Whitewater did what they were supposed to do against Eau Claire. It was presumably going to be a win for Whitewater. But like I said, bittersweet, excuse me, in terms of the final.
Good?
Go ahead.
Good? Alright. But yeah, like I said, like I was gonna say, definitely
I'm sorry, guys.
Mason's dying.
I'm so sorry. I just totally.
This is good radio.
I was trying to explain it and you were coughing. I was
No,
like,
you're good.
I was gonna say.
Oh my gosh, I'm recovering from the sickness. I was also at the
Okay.
Badger game this weekend,
I am too.
Alright.
so my voice.
Me too.
Duck hunting.
Yeah, hey, I'm still having a really bad cough
sorry,
too.
guys.
It's going around.
And I was, I wasn't feeling well a couple weeks ago, but like I was saying, yeah, for sure. But yeah, for sure, it was definitely we ended off the season on a high note by at least winning. Yes, this weekend.
What were some stats that stood out to you?
The one thing was.
I'm so
Excuse
sorry,
me.
guys. I'm so sorry.
One thing that really kind of caught my eye was the passing yards for Warhawks, 171, and Eau Claire was 258, but our rushing yards were really good. It was 290, and then versus Eau Claire's was 39, so it's like but yeah, so we beat the many yards for them by like a landslide, but I will say this overall, it's just, at least, again, we won yesterday. We ended up the regular season on a high note. And, unfortunately, we're not going to playoffs. But, it's just overall been a up and down year. But hopefully they'll come back strong next year and hopefully make the playoffs. Who knows? We'll just wait and see.
Adam,
Yeah, I know you're trying not to talk.
you're
but-
good.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you had to beat Eau Claire. I mean, you want to end the year on a high note for as bad as it was. And honestly, I don't know who would have thought that this season would have gone the way that it did. Because honestly, I don't think any of us in this room right now would have anticipated that we would have gone, 6-4 is what we went?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really didn't think that that's what would have happened, but yet here we are talking about it. But I mean, Jason Cinetti didn't do too bad. I mean, he only missed one pass out of the 11 that he threw. But yeah, but most of those touchdowns were. I think there was 5 rushing touchdowns. I think Jason Cinetti accounted for 2 of them. I have it right here. Tyler Vasey, Noah Battle, and Drake Martin all had 1. And Brian Stanton had a receiving touchdown as well. But yeah, honestly, when it comes to how we did this year, I think it was just like a hiccup, I guess would be the best term that I could give. But honestly, I think next season we're going to be a lot better. I have high hopes for this team.
Yeah, and I want to look at also Jason Cinetti, his rushing numbers. I mean, that was really good. I mean, showing off that dual threat ability, not just having 149 yards passing, but also 124 rushing yards. That's insane. But yeah, this Whitewater team, this is a big positive to end the year, and can definitely, give a lot of these young guys the confidence that they need going into next year. And Coach Rindall and everybody, hopefully we take the positives and learn from the mistakes this year and learn from them, and hopefully next year we're back to that Whitewater football we all know.
Yeah, and I'll take the next year's stance at it. So they are pretty young, actually. I mean, they're starting quarterback and running back with Tamir Thomas, Cinetti, and Christ, all seniors, but Ty Schultz, running back, he's a freshman. He came live at the end of the year. Noah Battle, also a freshman running back. And they got a lot. Their starting tight end's only a junior, starting linebacker junior. Wilter Dink, one of their top receivers, he's a junior, so he'll be back. Tyler Vasey, the return man, that's a beast. He's only a sophomore. So they're really young still. They got a couple DBs that got some time that were freshmen too, so I don't know. Next year, I would think they would come back better. I don't know what the quarterback situation will look like. We got a couple of freshmen on the roster, so might have a young starting quarterback next year. So
I agree 100%. Had to get an emergency water break in.
Yeah.
Shout out Alex Monty there. Sorry guys, I don't know. I got a tickle right in the back of my throat.
I hate that.
And I just could not get it.
That's always the worst.
But yeah, so long story short, excuse me, Whitewater wins 48-7. Mason, you were the only one that wasn't able to speak. What were your final thoughts on the game?
Yeah. My bad. I'm trying to collect myself.
Oh, you're all good.
I find that
I would be in the
hilarious.
same boat as you. Don't worry.
He was over here trying not to pass away, and how about them Warhawks, man?
No, I get it. The show must go on. That was the worst timing ever.
Yeah, it's all right. But, I mean, looking at it from a years to come perspective, I do understand what we were just saying. With our team being relatively young, I mean, we are going to lose some very important pieces, and it's going to be tough. Overall, it's just going to come down to that passing game. I feel like in this game, of course, the game where we had 0 interceptions was a game that we beat the brakes off the other team. I mean, a little bit too late, but I mean, I think that was the only game we were able to do that. So if I'm not mistaken, so I mean that's a good. It's a good way to end off the season. That's what I'll say. I'm gonna just look at it and be like, this is a fluke year. Next year, hopefully, we can get things together. They have the whole off season, however that works for college football, to work things out, get more used to each other, all those type of things. And I'm just hoping that next year we don't get a repeat of this year, because while we weren't the worst team in our conference by any means, we're not the Warhawks that we expect to be. And hopefully we can just turn things around and get back to what we're used to, so that next year we don't got to come on here somber every single time. Because I liked it at the beginning of the season when I came in here all hype and, oh, yeah, this is our year, all that type of thing. But there's always more years, so.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to describe this game, this season as a whole, is probably a C for the Warhawks. I mean, you could probably go a little bit lower, but just in terms of, yes, it was a unfortunate season, but at the same time, I think it's a testament to how much better the WIAC has gotten. In previous years, Whitewater's just consistently always beat up other teams in conference, and this year you had teams like Stout, Platteville, who ended up sharing the WIAC title with Stout, and La Crosse all making the playoff. It was a very, very tough conference this year, and to give Rindahl, the benefit of the doubt, it's still his second year coaching, and it's not like any of these games were blowouts that we lost by any stretch of the means. We discussed it last week, but all of our losses, minus the loss to Mary Hardin Baylor early in the season, were by one possession. So, I mean, a couple decisions here and there, maybe a missed kick here and there or whatnot. We're having a completely different conversation right now, but it was frustrating. Whitewater finishes with a 4-1 home record, a 2-3 record on the road, which is another thing I think Rindahl will address next year. But most importantly, still a young team, to Carson's point, with all of our players, and I think they'll come back season better than ever. It's just unfortunate how the dominoes fell this year, and we will see the Whitewater Warhawks back in action next season for football. And shout out UW Stout, UW Platteville, and UW La Crosse for all advancing to the playoff. That'll conclude our entertaining segment on the Whitewater football team, and we'll now transition over to the NFL. Packers, we'll start with that one just because of Wisconsin listeners. And we'll just get it quick out of the way for the Bears fan in the fishbowl here. But the Packers defeated the Bears 20-19 yesterday in a back and forth, really, really good game. For the positives for the Bears, I will say, Caleb looked good. He's done what I've said he's done the past few weeks. He's played it very smart, a lot better than rookie quarterbacks of old. Very composed and making right decisions that I will compliment him on, and he did his job. He had a couple great plays, especially the one on fourth down to even get the Bears into field goal range. But unfortunately, the game ended with Packers blocking the kick from the hand of Carl Brooks. I know Carl Brooks is probably the most loved man in Wisconsin right now, but my friends and I were all huddled around the TV watching and just sitting there in anticipation and watching the block and the kick landing just short. It was truly special. So Packers are now 13-0 against the Bears in their last 13 contests. We'll start with you, Carson. Overall thoughts and takeaways on the game, positives for the Bears, and what you think needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it hurts, but I mean they played pretty good, and I wasn't even expecting us to really be in the mix when the clock hit 0, so they played a lot better than I thought. One thing I noticed, it seemed like Caleb had a lot more time than usual. He wasn't running around with his head like a chicken with his head cut off all the time, which he has been. He still took 3 sacks, but I mean, we've seen a lot worse. Another thing that was really good was third down efficiency on the offensive side of the ball. They've been pretty terrible at third downs, and they kept like a ton of drives going, important drives yesterday with huge third down completions, and Caleb looked pretty poised on all of them as well. Defense didn't look terrible either. I mean, it might not even come down to the final kick if Jordan Love doesn't throw that awful interception, but yeah, there's always one a game at least, and it's usually never really good, but that was his one for yesterday.
I mean, and I'm not trying to rub salt in the wound here, but this is 2 results that are just gut-wrenching between the Hail Mary loss against Washington and now this.
Well, you become used to it.
I mean, I'm a Tennessee sports fan, so I'm right there with you, but I can understand. It's just so frustrating because you're flipping those 2 games away.
Before it even kicked, I was like, man, like, we got one of the best kickers in the league, 46 yards. Like, theoretically, this should be a no-doubter, but it's the Bears, and the clock's ticking to 0, so they'll find a way.
They always find a way.
Yeah. I know, it's like they got the curse going now that, like, transition from the Cubs. Once they won the World Series finally, it, like, transition from the Cubs to the Bears, it seems like.
From Wrigley
the double
over to
doink
Soldier.
and, yeah, just brutal, so I don't know. Life sucks, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Packers MVP, Chris.
It's tricky because, to be honest, this was not a pretty game at all. I mean, first off, looking at the defense, like Carson said, the Bears' third down percentages have not been good this year, and we just like let them get all those easy first downs. I mean, it was late in the game, that final drive, 3rd and deep after they sacked Caleb Williams 2 times in a row. We just need to, play it easy, and he's about to get sacked for a 3rd time in a row. He evades out to his right and throws it down the field. There's an open receiver, and they get a big play, and ultimately a couple plays later they set themselves up for the game-winning field goal that, fortunately for us, was blocked. But the defense was not looking pretty at all. That's also why Caleb Williams was getting all that time. D-line just wasn't looking all that great. That's something that needs to be addressed in the future, is just that I know that the defense has been solid this season, but against Chicago, you just can't be doing that. Jordan Love had himself a solid game, but I think my MVP goes to Christian Watson. This season, he's struggled the injury bug like he's been here early in his career, but he stepped up big when it counted, 150 yards. That one big play on their final touchdown drive where he got that big catch down the field and had the awareness to get back up and go even further, almost getting the touchdown on that play. That was a huge play, but 150 yards is no joke, and that was a big reason why Green Bay was able to take the lead there late and ultimately get the victory.
Adam, Mason, Packer fans, further thoughts on the game?
I'll let you get it.
Oh, you want me to? All right. I mean, I didn't really watch the game, so I mean, my opinion could be counted as invalid. But yeah, I'm honestly thankful to the high heavens that we ended up winning that, because while watching the highlights, I was just like, how in the world are we letting Chicago run through us? That's not like us. Like, we should be blowing them out right now, but no, we had to make it interesting. But yeah, I'm just happy that we still own the Bears for another year. Oh wait, no, we got to play them again, sorry. But as of right now, we still own Chicago, and that's what I'm happy about.
13-0 in the last 13. Mason, your thoughts?
I'd say that my game MVP has to go to Patrick Mahomes, because I sat there and I thought about it for a while.
What?
Hold on, because it'll make sense. It'll make sense.
Let him cook. All right.
Bears fans always get mad because they didn't draft who?
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes. Think about it. Mahomes' magic works on the team that he's on. The team that he could have been on, they have the opposite. What year did Mahomes get drafted? 2017. Now, the curse didn't start up for that year because the Bears beat the Packers in 2018. But that was before Mahomes. That was like when Mahomes first started starting. Ever since Mahomes has been a real starter and had his Mahomes magic, the Bears have been facing reverse Mahomes magic. So I'd say that them not drafting Patrick Mahomes is ultimately what did it for the Packers. I mean, they're facing that negative vibes and the bad juju from that. And I mean, I'm just glad. I did get mad at Mahomes for getting that blocked field goal for win. But what I didn't know is that was ultimately him saying, "Hey, Packers fans, I got you overall." And Mahomes still lost this week. So I mean, ultimately, it's glad to see that we beat the Bears. I was really scared for a second when I saw the field goal getting lined up. I was like, they could hit this and we're gonna lose. But then I thought about it for a second. I was like, wait, they're the Bears. And yeah, I mean, I didn't even know what happened at first. At first, I didn't even see the block. I thought they just kicked it horribly.
Yeah,
but
I did too.
Then I heard it was a block, and I almost cried my eyes out. Man, I was so happy.
Going off of his point, I think if Mahomes gets drafted by the Bears, there's no such thing as Mahomes magic.
that too.
Being on the Bears negates that.
I would agree
True.
with that one.
True.
Yeah.
They'd find a way. I mean, who was their offensive coordinator in 2018? I mean, it was who was their head coach? It was Nagy, right?
Yeah, he was the
Yeah,
coach.
he's the head
Yeah.
coach.
Brutal. So, like you said, Chris, I doubt Mahomes magic would even be a thing.
Yeah.
I think Mahomes and Andy Reid were just a match made in heaven. But that being said, overall, just in terms of outlook for the season, big win for Green Bay. It was ugly, it wasn't pretty, but Love, besides that horrendous interception, did his job. Jacobs looked great as usual, and I think my MVP has to be Christian Watson as well.
Yeah.
4 catches, 150 yards, but obviously the big one coming late in the fourth to set them up for the go-ahead touchdown. Packers win 2019, advance to 7-3 on the season. Bears fall to 4-6, and any chances of a wild card are slowly kind of slipping away this season. But in my opinion, it isn't the end of the world for Bears fans. Just need to build the O-line this offseason. Caleb's looked plenty fine, and it's always next year, which is a statement Bears have been saying for a minute now.
Yep.
We'll shift over. I know Zach's been dying to talk about the Eagles this past Thursday night. Big NFC East matchup between the two teams everyone thought were going to be fighting for the NFC East title, between the Commanders and Eagles.
Yeah, it's a big win for sure. It was looking scary though the first 3 quarters. I mean, it was halftime. Commanders were up 7-3. I don't know what was going on with Philly, but then once the fourth quarter hit, Philly was on fire and there was no stopping them. And how about that Saquon Barkley with 2 touchdowns, 26 carries, 146 yards. He's my MVP of that game, no doubt.
100%.
I'm pretty sure that there were. I would say if I was saying who the MVP was for every Eagles game I was doing recaps of, I'm pretty sure almost all of my MVPs would say Barkley.
We're seeing a common theme here, and it's really just a testament to the Giants' stupidity for giving Jones that contract and having to let a guy like Saquon Barkley
It was the
walk.
Giants bye week and they still lost.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's beautiful. I think we're starting to see the rookie pressure coming to Jaden Daniels. After starting off with such a hot start this season, he's been kind of lackluster these past 3 weeks. I don't know if the rib injury is still bothering him, but that being said, a lot of just check downs, not a lot of ambition, but like you said, Zach, in the fourth quarter, Eagles really turned up the heat. Saquon looked phenomenal, 2 touchdowns in a matter of minutes of game time to ultimately seal the game. Very impressive win for the Eagles, who now have a definitive lead in the NFC East, 8-2 on the season. Commanders now 7-4. Starting to look very, very good for yet another NFC East title for
And I
Philadelphia.
also say this one stat: ever since Nick Sirianni got that haircut, we've been undefeated ever since. I know I'm not a big fan of his new haircut, but at the same time, I'm not complaining because we've been undefeated ever since he got his haircut.
if you keep winning,
If it
Yeah.
ain't broke,
keep it.
don't
That's
fix
right.
it.
If it ain't broke,
It was like that
don't
Patrick
fix
Mahomes
it.
superstition thing with his, like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
At least it's not Aaron Rodgers' creepy mustache.
Hey, like I said, whatever you got to do to win games, and I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious, But whatever you got to do, very, very impressive win for the Eagles. Adam, what's one game that really stood out to you this weekend? No, you said you weren't able to watch that many, but just one game overall you looked at and went, huh.
Okay, definitely Broncos.
I figured you would say
Or
that.
the Falcons. I mean, Bo Nix just went off on Atlanta. I mean, he completed 85% of his passes. He went 28 for 33 with 4 touchdown passes on 307 yards. Definitely the MVP of that game. Nice see why I believe in Bo. That's exactly why.
I will 100% sit here and say I'm wrong. I'm shocked. He's looked fantastic.
Yeah, and surprisingly, the Kirko chains didn't look too good. That's what shocked me.
This
They only
game-
held Atlanta to 2 field goals.
This game for me was just really bad for preseason takes for me because I was so high on the Falcons and so down on the Broncos. I knew Bo Nix was the most NFL ready just because of his experience in college.
He's like 30.
The thing is the same age. He's the same age as Jaden Daniels, but it's obviously the meme culture, whatever, etc. But Nix has been tremendous. He's done his job really well. Like you said, 28 for 33, 307, and 4 touchdowns. And his maturity, I know he's older relative to other rookie quarterbacks, but his maturity and his accountability paired with Sean Payton has looked really good in Denver. And they're a sneaky team for that 7th seed out west. As for the Falcons, poor Falcons fans, man. They're kind of my honorary, just team that I like to watch. But just, you have a couple weeks of optimism, and then you put out a performance like this, and you're wondering to yourselves, why are we even still competing?
Well, I mean, you should have seen Bo Nix's reaction when Javonte Williams had that. I think it was that that 14-yard touchdown run. That reaction was just priceless.
It's just he's really stepped up as a leader for that team.
Oh yeah.
And it's just been great. Hoping the Falcons can bounce back as a concerned Bijan and Drake London fantasy owner. We need to pick up the pace back there. But shout out the Broncos. Bo Nix is starting to insert his name back in Offensive Rookie of the Year talks. with the performance of Jaden as of late. So we might see a really nice, fun, competitive race. And the Broncos are rolling. So maybe your Bo Nix Peyton Manning take early in the season isn't as terrible as we thought. I mean, still a long way to go. A long way to go.
Well, so far it's looking okay.
But if you put up a 145 quarterback rating with only 5 incompletions and 4 touchdowns, you're doing something right out there.
Oh yeah.
Chris, one game you want to talk about from this past
It's
weekend?
tricky because there was some good games.
It was
this
a
weekend.
really good slate this week, and I can think of some that were not as great, but there's plenty of good ones.
I'm gonna talk about the Detroit game.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was hoping you would.
Detroit has proven to me that they're the best team in the NFC. I mean, Philadelphia's really
in the
good.
league.
Yeah, arguably in the league too. Philadelphia's really good. I was a little shaky about them early in the season. We know the ending of the year they had last year. Saquon, is showing that he's been a big piece to them, and the Nick Sirianni haircut, helping them win. So I think Philadelphia's been good. We know San Francisco was a big powerhouse last year. This year they're not looking so good. So I think the two teams that kind of run the NFC right now are Philadelphia and Detroit. But they beat up on Jacksonville, and some people discredit that. Oh, Jacksonville's not as good, but Detroit they did more than what they were expected to do. Jared Goff had 412 yards. Amon-Ra 161 receiving yards. That passing game was really good. Detroit is like the team that I think will go all the way out of the NFC though. They're just that good. They're so complete on offense, and Dan Campbell being the leader he is, it's incredible.
They are just undoubtedly the most complete team in the NFL. I've been saying it for the past few shows now.
Sucks that they don't have Aiden Hutchinson. That I think deflates it just a little bit on defense, but other than that, they've been great.
Goff's looked tremendous, and a nice little bounce back week for him after the 5-pick week last week. And granted, it was a beat up Jacksonville team, but just overall for a quarterback's morality and confidence, a game like this was needed. A smash mouth football game at home in front of your fans. Lions now 9-1 in the season, and after the Chiefs loss yesterday, have now jumped in terms of odds as the Super Bowl favorite. So, Lions fans, get your popcorn ready. This might be your year.
Maybe.
I have.
Still got a long way to go.
And there's plenty of season left. We just eclipsed the halfway point, but just from what I've seen, I've watched almost every game between Red Zone and Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday Night Football, and the Lions have 100%, without a doubt, are just so complete.
Detroit is now America's team.
Yeah, and they're still finding ways to win against good teams, throwing 5 interceptions, too. That was what really shocked me. Like, how many teams where your quarterback throws 5 picks and you win? So,
and yet another game with a perfect quarterback rating for Jared Goff. I believe that's his second or third on the season with a perfect 158.3. And as for Jacksonville, really not much to say. Trevor wasn't playing, but even then, would the result have been any different? Mac Jones is just one of the quarterbacks in the NFL.
It sucks too, because I remember when Jones got drafted and Patriots went on that playoff run, I actually thought Jones would be like something big.
Everyone was like, no, the Patriots have their Brady again, and then poop. Not that great. But Lions, it's just their offense is so beautiful with all the weapons they have, the split carries between Montgomery and Gibbs. We are seeing a revelation in Detroit, and like I said, it might be time to start preparing the championship route in Detroit. And Lions fans, they're not used to this. This is the first time in a long time, but it's a rebuild well done. It was very well executed. Hiring Campbell 4 years ago or 5 years ago now. 4 years ago. As soon as I saw him get hired in just his first interview, I knew this was going to be a guy that was perfect for a rebuild. And he's done a great job.
And it revitalized Jared Goff's career too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, go.
No, you're okay.
Going from LA where, he was solid. They went to a Super Bowl with him. He kind of just fell off a little bit. The trade worked out for both teams. Rams got their Super Bowl, and the Lions are well on pace to get theirs, so it's incredible.
Yeah, and I do believe if the Lions do end up winning a Super Bowl, even if it's not this season, it'll probably be the most win-win trade in NFL history. And maybe not for future, but the Rams made it abundantly clear that they wanted to win it all that year, and they were going to do anything they could to win it all that year, and they did. So, win-win trade for both teams in terms of what their goals were for that present moment. Detroit fans are very happy Stafford got his, but if that trade ever goes down, both teams likely don't win a ring. So, very, very even trade. Detroit now 9-1. Jacksonville fighting for the first overall pick. Carson, one game that stood out to you this weekend.
I'll go Steelers and Ravens.
Ooh, very good game.
Steelers are legit. I don't know. They always find a way, and I like it. I've always liked Pittsburgh.
They're gritty,
they
man.
did it. Yeah, they did it without scoring a single touchdown too. So a lot of fantasy points for the old kicker.
Shout out Chris Boswell.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean the Ravens' offense, which Lamar's been pretty unstoppable this year. He didn't have his best game, and the Steelers' defense was really good. And as a Lamar fantasy owner, I know this was definitely his most down week of the season. So he still didn't have a terrible game. I mean, 207 through the air, touchdown, pick, only 4 carries on the ground. But see, that's like an average performance for Lamar. But yeah, I don't know. The Ravens are kind of showing some flaws too. They're pretty inconsistent. I mean, one week they look like the best team in the league, and then the next week they're losing to the Browns, and yeah. But I don't know. I think Ravens are the better team out of the Steelers and them, but I guess yesterday they weren't. So
What was really concerning to me was Derrick Henry was not involved in a single carry in that fourth quarter, which
yeah,
I don't know. When you pick up Henry in the offseason, I think he's meant for games like this, these close one-score games, and you really can utilize the mobility of Jackson and the ground and pound with Henry. And instead, I just don't understand how he doesn't touch the ball in the fourth. But that being
Right.
said, Ravens have some flaws they do need to work on. I think they will be fine. I think they will get it figured out. And I don't think a road divisional game it will hurt Lamar's MVP candidacy. It's going to be close, don't get me wrong. It was probably his worst game of the season, and it wasn't even that bad relative to other players. As for the Steelers, that defense.
They're sneaky good.
It's just a team that you go out there and watch, and you're like, if they do win, it's going to be close. But it just every time it's a close game, they win. They find ways, just like
Yeah.
Carson said. Tomlin's a fantastic coach, has never had a losing record in his career as a coach, and now with the 8th win in the season for the Steelers, we will see that streak, barring a colossal, just monumentous blow-up,
I think it was
will continue.
early in the year too. A lot of us said that the Steelers would be pretenders. I think a lot of people were thinking that, and now they're really showing that they are a strong team.
I didn't understand the benching of Fields, and
that
been quietly proven wrong there. Wilson hasn't been great by any means, but I think he's just slightly better with than Fields with his arm, to where it fits their system a little bit better. But
Yeah,
Steelers,
and if they ever
sneaky good.
if they ever need Fields, he's right there. It's perfect.
And that is not a team you want to play in Pittsburgh in the playoffs. And if they do win the AFC North, they're a nice little. I mean, it sucks to have to call them a sleeper at 8-2, but it's just
no, I think they are.
they're sneaky. They really are. I think they're trying to work their way into the conversation along with the Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs as a team that legitimately could come out of the AFC this year.
Anybody but the Chiefs.
I think we would all be on board with that. And yeah, great win for Pittsburgh. Terrible towels were out, and they were loud yesterday at Heinz Field.
One last thing too. The Steelers too. I always like because they're loaded up on Badgers too. I mean, you got Russell Wilson at quarterback. Their defense is loaded with former Badgers, of course. T.J. Watt, Keanu Benton, who I actually went to high school with. Nick Herbig, another Wisconsin guy. Isaiah Loudermilk, another Wisconsin guy. So they got like four starters on the defense.
Full pack of Badgers.
Yeah, Badgers, and then their quarterback's Badger too. So I don't know. A lot of their key players are from Wisconsin, which I love. So I think that's maybe
nice.
why I like the Steelers too.
Obviously, TJ and Derek as well, formerly Derek, but the Watt brothers. Very nice. Mason, one game that stood out to you.
I'm gonna go ahead and fade the obvious pick of Buffalo versus Chiefs, and go with one that actually helps one of my agendas that I'm pushing. I'm not sure if it was on here that I said it, or on the other show that I'm on, but I did say that the Seahawks could very well win the NFC West.
It was on this episode.
Okay,
on this show.
yeah, for sure. And at the beginning of the season, people were like, oh my god, like that seems crazy, especially considering the 49ers are in that division. But as we've already talked about, the 49ers are bums this year. Like, now I'm not going to say complete bums, but compared to what you expect the 49ers to be, they're not that at all. So I have to highlight the Seahawks versus 49ers game where the Seahawks were able to beat the 49ers by 3, 20-17. And this was with McCaffrey back, so they don't have a whole lot of excuses. I guess the only excuse a 49er fan could have is, oh, Brock Purdy only had 2 top-level talents instead of 4, so he wasn't at his full power. To which I say, boo-hoo. I mean, that's tough. I guess now your Madden overall would only be a 88 instead of a 92. Like, okay. Looking at that, man, I really liked how Geno Smith played, especially towards the end of the game. He did have an interception, which, I mean, that's never great. But going out there up against a division rival who many people thought would be the best team in this division and handling business there, I really like where that leaves them in terms of the rest of their season, because especially compared to the other teams in the NFC West, they have probably the lightest schedule out of all of them. I mean, right now the Cardinals are number 1 in that division, but I realistically see either the Seahawks or the Rams, especially with them being more healthy. I also liked that game a lot. Or the Seahawks or the Rams, I see them winning, but based on what I just did, I went and looked at all their schedules and predicted what their records are going to end up being. So based off what my predictions are for how these games are going to turn out, I'm not going to go through each individual game, but I have the Seahawks at number 1 at 10-7, the Rams after that at 9-8. The 49ers at 8-9, and the Cardinals at 8-9 at the bottom of that list, which does suck for the 49ers, but that's great for the Packers because that also helps my agenda of the Packers making the Super Bowl. Because as long as the 49ers aren't there and we can stop shooting ourselves in the foot, we'll be great. So that game, while it wasn't the most amazing game on paper, for my agendas, it was the most beautiful game I could ever watch. So I was really happy that the Seahawks were able to go out there, beat those stinking 49ers, and get them up out the way. I feel like they're probably not even make the playoffs at this point.
It was funny because the very first thing I thought about when Geno ran in the end zone was, wow, Mason's going to talk about that tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
That was literally my first thought. But Geno played great. Despite the pick and, no passing touchdowns, that last drive was just really in the embodiment of Geno Smith's career.
Yes,
Anytime,
indeed.
just pushed around, kicked around, and still finding ways to stick with it and get the job done. Great last drive that he led. And the Niners, like you said, they're so banged up. But even still, we're finally seeing what a lot of people have expected from Purdy to be without top weapons. He's looked like a total game manager, and it's time to have a legitimate question about his future in Frisco going forward.
Oh, I mean, real quick, I won't even question it. I'm going to go ahead and nail this in the coffin now because now I've seen enough this year. Brock Purdy is not top 10 to me. And, I mean, we can get out the list. Brock Purdy's not top 10. I'm tired of people trying to act like he was more than he ever was. He's super Jimmy. He's super Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, it's cool.
You have to give him credit though for being last pick in the draft and at
Yeah,
least,
I mean,
being
his
And he
story's
made the
great.
Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, good guy, that Brock Purdy. But I mean, he's not top 10.
This year hasn't been pretty, but I think hopefully he figures it out. I want Brock Purdy to be the quarterback that he was last year.
That division's just so mid.
Yeah, I agree.
Saw a meme earlier, the
I feel
battle
like the
of mid.
Rams are genuinely a good team. Like, all narratives aside, I wish I could have switched from the Seahawks to the Rams earlier on this season. I forgot about the Rams. I really do. I feel like the Rams are super legit, and their record doesn't show it at all. But they're a really
They're
good
coming
team.
together
They're healthy.
lately. I mean, they'd had I think they started like 1-4, so
Yeah.
4-1 in their last 5, which is good. So yeah, I think they could come out on top. I mean, anybody could.
All
Yeah.
in all, was a great week of NFL football. That NFC West division is certainly going to be exciting to watch down the stretch. All teams within one game of each other, and like I said, it's going to be tight. Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks might be the team to come out of the division this year. We will see in these upcoming weeks. We'll now get over to our last segment here. Talk a little college basketball real quickly before we go into our team updates. I want to shout out the Wisconsin Badgers picking up a big win on Friday night against Arizona. Shout out John Tanji.
Yeah.
My buddy Nick, who filled in for you, Carson, said John Tanji is going to be the impact player for the Badgers to start the season. And
Oh, he was more than an impact.
and a
player.
casual would be like,
Yeah,
John, transfer.
Not missing Store too much now, so
Definitely not.
he's a lot more efficient too. It seems like every time Store would drive into the lane, it was turnover, charge, missed shot. I don't know. He was a little out of control, and I think Tanjay's got makes better decisions from what I've seen. So
So,
and he can get to the line as we saw.
and I do believe the Badgers did move into the top 25.
Yeah,
Is that
they're
around
at 19.
19.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Zach, we'll start with you. How are your Jayhawks doing this season?
Still looking business as usual. They won 78-57 over the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. Yeah, 4-0. Not surprised at it, but seeing some of the stats by the players, KJ Adams Jr. with 12 points, Hunter Dickinson with 10. And yeah, just overall, like I said, nothing else to really much say. It's just business as
Business
usual
as
for
usual.
Kansas, and it's looking to stay that way for pretty much the rest of the season.
That game
4-0
on Tuesday was good though.
against Michigan State.
Yeah, I was sick as a dog watching that, so I had nothing else to do. I was just binge watching basketball that night. So that was a good game.
Kansas looked fine.
Wish Michigan State pulled it off, but
Unfortunately not. Hunter Dickinson and his elder abuse that NCAA is putting him through. Looking great per usual and just really good. Bill Self, tremendous head coach. They will play UNC Wilmington tomorrow, but then a week from tomorrow they play against Duke. So another big test early in the season for Kansas, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. Adam, UConn, how about them Huskies?
Well, since last week's show, they've only played one game, which is kind of sad to be honest. But
Early season scheduling.
yeah, but they played Lemoyne, and I thought, yeah, this will be an easy one. And sure enough, they beat them by like 41 points. So I thought, yeah, that's not surprising. But Alex Caravan, I mean, he did what he had to do as that senior leader. He put 17 points up, and Liam McNeely had 15 solo ball. I love that name.
Good. He's been good.
Love that name too, by the way. I mean, solo ball and a Therese Reed Jr. who he had a double that night as well, with 12 points and 10 rebounds. They both had 12 apiece, and Hassan Diarra off the bench had. Oh wait, no, I think he's a starter. Never mind. He had 10. So yeah, they shot 55.6% from the field, and I thought, wow. Even if it's against a non-conference team, that's pretty good.
Very relatively easy start to the season for UConn. We discussed that last week as well. They play East Texas A&M tomorrow. Again, going to be a walk in the park. I'm very curious and excited for this upcoming game next week versus Memphis.
Against your Memphis Tigers.
That'll be very exciting. Memphis currently sits undefeated as well, and I think that'll be the first true test. I expect UConn to pull away, but that'll definitely be their first test early on this season in their quest for a three-peat.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Is this Lemoyne's first year in D1?
I believe it is.
Never heard of them before, and I think I looked it up, and they're in the NEC, which is D1, so it's got to be their first year.
I can't attest offhand, but there was another team that I was watching too, UI Indy. It used to be IUPUI. I was
Oh.
like, I've never heard of IU Indy before, but
It
I was like,
changed.
yeah. So formerly IUPUI. So
They're historically bad.
a couple teams have moved into D1 this year. Chris, how about the Crimson Tide? I know they did take an L.
They did take an L. They dropped in the rankings. They're still top 10, though. They lost to Purdue, who's ranked 13. With that being said, this upcoming schedule is continuing that gauntlet that we talked about.
Brutal
They
schedule.
started it with McNeese. We talked about it. McNeese is not bad. They're pretty solid team. They're sneaky good. Alabama got the job done there, and then losing in not a bad game, 87-78 to Purdue. We got to play 25 ranked Illinois, 7 ranked Houston, 24 ranked Rutgers, 10 ranked North Carolina, and 14 ranked Creighton all in a row. That's going to be
That's
tricky.
a brutal month
That is-
worth of games.
That is very brutal. And then we got a couple more games before starting conference play. And the SEC, not too bad. There's some good teams in there. Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas A&M. Some good teams to look out for. But I mean, this is going to be a tough one for them Crimson Tide. I mean, you got to play what is that, 5 consecutive ranked games. I think they can get out. Like Illinois, Rutgers, those are a couple games that I think they can win with them being lower ranked, but you can at the same time anything can happen. Houston's going to be a tricky one. Houston's always a good team. North Carolina too. Creighton, I think they can beat Creighton, but I always look at Creighton as that sneaky good team. As for just performance-wise, Mark Sears has been playing pretty good, averaging about 17 points a game. They've got a few other guys who are scoring a good amount. Actually, 3 guys averaging 12 points exactly. Latrell, Wrightsell, Grant Nelson, and Labyrin Fillin. They're doing pretty solid. That loss to Purdue, I'm not discouraged by it. It's a ranked team. It's just a matter of how well you do in this next stretch, because it's going to be a rough one.
Yeah, we were discussing if they just go 500 in this stretch, I think they'll be fine. It's, like I said, a lot of really competitive games early on in the season, and they'll be fine. They'll be definitely battle-tested come conference play. I'm not concerned about them at all. Carson, I'm drawing a blank on who you picked.
Auburn.
Auburn, that's right.
I will say first with the Alabama, college basketball I think has the most home court advantage in any sport.
I agree
you can never
100%.
change my mind on that.
Yeah.
Like if Purdue and Alabama played at Bama, probably a different game. If the Badgers went on the road to Zona, they probably get blown out. Anyways, on to the Auburn Tigers. They only played once. Kent State beat them by 23. I don't know if it's Joni or Johnny because it's spelled weird. Johni, Johnny Broom.
Johnny Broom.
On their game on Wednesday, he recorded his 60th career game with 3 or more blocks, which is an insane stat. It's the most by any active player in Division I, clearly. And he did have his first double-double of the year also on Wednesday against Kent State with 18 points and 12 boards. They do have a little bit of a tough stretch coming up. They got North Alabama tonight. And then next week from today, they got Iowa State. That one's at home. Iowa State's ranked 5th. They're 4th. I think they come out on that one. But then they got to go to Cameron and play Duke. And that's one of the hardest places to win in college basketball. So I think they don't come out of that one with a win. But, yeah, so they'll be tested for sure, which they already have been this year, and they've won. So we'll see.
With the great win against Houston early on.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to that Iowa State game next week, as well as at Duke. We'll conclude with Mason with Rutgers. I'm on a time crunch, so I'm going to have to make it quick.
Real quick,
update on the Rutgers.
Yep, we're 3-0 so far. We've been going up against all unranked teams. We have 3 more games before we do get to play our first ranked team. So, hopefully we can be 6-0 by then. But then we got to go against number 8 Alabama. Then after that, number 7 Houston. But good start of the season so far. Hopefully we can keep it up. Nothing too crazy.
I'm very excited for that game against Bama in 9 days. That's going to be a really good game. We'll now get to final thoughts that'll conclude our little college basketball update. Zach, final thoughts for this Monday Hawk Talk.
Monday Night Football tonight is Texans and Cowboys. I'm going to make prediction. I'm going to say Texans are going to win.
Bang. Texas is going to win. Adam, final thoughts.
Well, the Badgers play tonight. I'm against UT Rio Grande Valley, so that should be an easy win for them.
How much did they win by?
I think last time I checked, ESPN had them by 21.5.
Yeah, that's
Perfect.
right.
Chris, final thoughts.
Shout something out we don't talk about much. John Jones. That was a big match on
Big
Saturday
win.
night.
Will he fight Pereira or Aspinall or none?
It sounds like he should fight Aspinall.
I would love to see it. We will see.
Wasted my life Friday night with that Tyson match. That redeemed
That was lame. That fight
That
was
was
lame.
so boring.
Carson, final thoughts.
Badger basketball is definitely my favorite team that I'd root for, so that win on Friday was awesome, and hopefully they keep it going. And last week, my final thought was fire Shane Waldron, and
They did.
He